All right, we're live. What's up, guys? What is up? Somebody's got a speaker going. I can hear an echo. But what's up, guys? Man, I don't know. I don't hear it again anymore. But man, welcome back to Deck Talk Podcast, and we got a show for you. We actually got two guests on here. We've been excited to be able to get these two guys. We've known them for quite a few years, and been able to chit chat with them. And if you don't know, guys, man, with the iBass360, these two gentlemen and the guy in the center is the guys that run iBass360. And we're going to get into that, guys. But if you don't know, I'm Colin Burnett.
And I'm Norman Lee. That's right, Colin. We have a heck of a show lined up tonight. But first, we have to take care of some business. We got to talk about our sponsor for tonight's episode, Bucked Up Energy. Bucked Up Energy is an all-natural supplement that gives you a higher level of energy and better stamina throughout the day without the harsh crash you get with other brands. Also, helping you to cut muscle recovery time along with boosting your endurance and libido levels, no matter what kind of physical activities you're into or just love spending time in the great outdoors. You need to make Bucked Up part of your daily routine. Go to www.buckedup.com. Make sure, don't forget, use that discount code DECKTALK20. Again, that's buckedup.com. Don't forget, use that discount code DECKTALK20. That's right, Colin, man. We have a heck of a show lined up for tonight, and you can see the guy sitting right next to me and the guy in the middle. We have iBass360 in the house. Anyway, let's get started with this. We have the founder of iBass360, founded iBass360 in 2014. The founder of iBass360, Rob Zorn, sitting right in the middle of us and sitting next to me right here in studio. Well, in my makeshift studio anyway, but not in the real studio
it's
today.
Deck Talk World Headquarters.
That's
actually.
right. But anyway, we got the head of media marketing, editing, and the writer for iBass360, Mr. Eric Evans.
What's up, guys? Man, thanks for coming on and taking the time to be able to hop on our podcast and let's talk a little bit about some fishing and iBass360 and some things that iBass has got going on that is exciting. That's we definitely want to be able to talk about.
It's always good to be with you, Colin and Norm. Always good.
So, before. Yeah, sorry about that, Rob. But before, I do want to tell everybody that Deck Talk Podcast has changed our logo because when we first started, Norman and I were talking about like we were wanting to be like an outdoor podcast where we can hit fishing, hunting, anything that's outdoors. So we had our logo that was designed to be more of an outdoor podcast. But last week we actually hit our year mark of the podcast, and Norman and I were talking, and we realized like we have not had anybody that was from any other kind of industry besides fishing. So we changed our logo, and I'll pop it up real quick. So that is our logo, guys. And so if you see that, make sure that you do know that that is us. And but we wanted to let y'all know it is exciting to be able to have a new logo. And pretty soon we're going to be having it all decked out. I've been busy, and Norman's been out on the water, so we have not been able to put any of that, like the iBass stuff, on there because again, Deck Talk Podcast is presented by iBass360, guys. So, but with that being said, I do want to let everybody know to make sure you go check out our website at www.decktalkpodcast.com, and as well check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and we're on every single platform that there is on podcasts, as in Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts, and so much more. But let's get the show rolling. Sorry about how I just wanted to feel like I needed to say that with this change logo, and people like, who is these people? But yeah, guys. So again,
Hey, Colin, you know what I like about that logo?
what's that?
You're the eye on fishing. You
Well,
got the eye on fishing.
we do have the eye on fishing, and it seems like here this year, or within this past year, we have been able to get our eyes on some pretty good fishermen on this podcast as well. So, um, but let's talk a little bit about uh, iBass and what people might not know what iBass is. So let's talk about what iBass is. But we do have to the exciting stuff that is coming up and what's already out on the website and stuff. So, Robbie, you want to take that away, brother?
Yeah, brother. I appreciate you guys having us on. I appreciate the introduction as well. iBass360 is really a fraternity of anglers across North America, showcasing positive things in their community. We launched our brand 10 years ago, just last week. I'm a cancer survivor. Essentially, that's what the brand was, to get notoriety for that cause. And along the way, we met more and more people battling things. I choose to share my struggle out loud. iBass360 is really a redemption brand. If you look through the collective of anglers that we have in this fraternity, a lot of them have dealt with many different things through life, but the resonating tone is that it's not about how you get knocked down, it's about how you move forward. And
Amen.
we want to be positivity in the fishing industry. We've picked up a bunch of niches along the way, whether it's ice fishing, crappie fishing, women's bass fishing. We just want to continue to grow the love and the passion for fishing and sharing our knowledge of what we learn when we go out there. So that's pretty much the long and the short of it of what our mission is.
Yeah.
What we like to be is a resource for the angler and the small businessman in the fishing industry.
Right.
We follow the major tournament tours, but we also highlight our collective of anglers and anglers who work with us at iBass360. We highlight them, we highlight their sponsors, we help them get sponsorship, and then we help those small businesses grow and get exposure. Um, and then along the way, as Rob said, we support breast cancer research. We support autism. We support Lou Gehrig's disease and many other initiatives in the community. We work with Gary Yamamoto and his wife Beverly on a number of different initiatives to get disadvantaged children, both physically and economically disadvantaged, out on the water and learning how to fish at Gary's ranch. So there are a lot of activities with the collective of anglers. Norman and Colin helped out with a fundraiser for autism anglers. And also, we helped Jack's Bait and Tackle in Chattanooga with a toy drive. So it's really all about giving back to the community and supporting anglers and businesses who do the same.
Exactly. And I mean, and that's one thing like we've got coming up as well. Like Norman and I are going to be going to the classic, which we'll talk a little bit more later on. But with us going to the podcast, it's going to be Deck Talks going. Podcast is going there as well, as we're representing both iBass360 and Deck Talk podcast. And but we got some killer news that's going to be coming out about that as well. But so let's talk a little bit about what is new with iBass360.
So we just finished up the Philadelphia Expo Center. It was another great show for the SFO family, Sport Fishing Outlet. Old 230 West Germantown Pike, Norristown, PA, bringing the best of fishing out Montgomery County. But we just wrapped up there, and we had a booth like we do every year there. And pro staffer Nick Ferry came in and worked the booth that weekend as well. But right now we're kicking off, getting ready. We're a week away from our back bays and rivers open up here for spring striped bass. We also, guys are still targeting smallmouth is big up here, and then trout season will open April 6th this year because Easter comes a week earlier this year. Um, as far as like techniques, is that what your question was, Colin? We could talk about some baits if you want to get into that.
Yeah, I want to definitely talk about that as well because I'm interested in which we've got like uh, trout and stuff like that up here or down here, um, but I'm really not that too much into it. And I know with you being in the shop, you kind of can talk a little bit about it.
Yeah,
And
so we have a huge population of trout. Pennsylvania Fish and Game does a fantastic job of really protecting the resources here. As you move through the Philadelphia area, there's countless trout clubs, whether they're from 15 to 20 people that are involved and engaged in these clubs, and they do fundraisers to buy fish from states such as Minnesota and other places in order to stock the fish in their backyard and keep that that resource going. We work closely with the Stony Creek Anglers Association as well as the Wissahickon Creek Anglers Association. Both of these organizations have massive amounts of members. They're very involved, and not only with the resource, but also working with Fish and Game to make sure that that resource is protected. Um, we have a lot of those kind of. Our shop is so successful because we're kind of like at the epicenter of fishing. It doesn't matter what the season is. There's always something to catch.
right,
Trout is a big mover for us in freshwater. Even though we're 100 miles from the beach, 70% of our business, I would say, is saltwater fishing. And then
really,
we have really some trophy lakes for smallmouth.
uh,
We lost Rob.
Okay, well,
yeah,
I'll pick it up while we wait for Rob. I mean,
okay,
one of the things that we do with Stony Creek and with Wissahickon Creek Anglers is sponsor the youth tournaments.
right,
Um, getting kids out fishing is really important. And in our part of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, up north, um, there's a lot of that activity, and they're always looking for tackle boxes to outfit the kids, teach the kids how to fish. Our trout season starts pretty early by northern standards, end of March, beginning of April, and you know a lot of the trout action is supported by SFO and
Right.
iBass360.
Now, as
right.
far as the trout fishing up in that area, is it a lot of lake fishing for the trout, or is it a lot of streams
It's
or river
mostly
type?
it's mostly streams and creeks. I'll say small rivers. A lot of fly fishing. Fly
That
fishing is
that's what I was
huge
going to ask.
in Pennsylvania, and there's some real trophy fly waters that are dedicated to fly fishing in the Lehigh Valley, up in the Poconos area, Pocono Mountains, also out in central Pennsylvania. The Latort is one of the real famous brown trout streams in Pennsylvania. It's fly fishing, it's spinning, and it's not too much with the bait casting, but it's small baits as well as some live baits with the grubs and the nymphs that the fly fishermen will imitate with
Right.
their flies.
Now you said brown trout. Is there any rainbow
Yeah,
as well?
rainbow is the primary trout that's stocked by the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
There's some creeks that have native brook trout and native brown trout populations. They stock what they call trophy fish, some big golden trout.
Right.
Some people call them palomino.
Palomino.
A lot of people will turn in the tag fish for cash prizes and things like that from the state. So it's just really it's the way to get things rolling in the season
Right.
in the Northeast.
Now, do y'all up in Pennsylvania and stuff, like we have like the TWRA and stuff like that, and TVA with us being on the Tennessee River, like they spray to try to manage the grass and stuff like that. Do they do stuff like that up there to try to manage grass?
In the
Try to
county where I
devastate.
live in Bucks County outside of Philadelphia, there are a couple of lakes where they've tried a couple times to manage it, and usually the anglers get up in arms
Yeah,
because they're fighting with the boaters,
yeah,
and up in our part, we have a lot of horsepower restriction lakes, and we also have a lot of electric only. And so you get the people who are out there with the trolling motors, and they don't want the weeds, but the fishermen want the weeds. And then you get the sailors, and they want to keep the weeds away from their keels.
Yeah.
So it's a constant struggle.
yeah,
Um,
Yeah, you talk about spraying and the weed control, the aquatic weed control. That's kind of, I still consider myself a Floridian. I spent pretty much all my life except for the last 3 years in Florida. I still consider Florida my home, even though it really isn't anymore. I still care a lot about our resources in Florida, and I still spend time two times out of the year, like down here for 3 weeks now, only fishing. And when it comes to spraying, that's a really sore subject in the state of Florida. But yeah, it's basically anytime you're putting poison into our water to control vegetation that's a natural type of habitat is never good. It's almost like taking a glass of water and putting one little eye drop, doesn't even need to be that much, a day into your glass of water and drink it. Well, it might not
Can you hear
affect
me, Colin?
you. It might not affect you the first week, the first year, but after you do that for about 3 years, sooner or later, that little poison you're consuming in one glass of water every day is going to slowly take its hold on you. And that's the same thing that happens to the fish when you're
yeah,
putting poison in their water to control the weeds and to control the aquatic
yeah.
vegetation.
yeah,
Whereas the lakes need it because that's the filtration system for the lakes.
it was
So,
really a problem with the St. John down here in Florida. I mean, the elites
it's
went there every year, and a lot of people remember. I think it was about 5 or 6 years
yeah,
ago. Rick Clunn had an awesome tournament there, and then I think it was 2 years ago, they went back, and the weeds just weren't there because they had sprayed, and the tournament had not even bags half the size
yeah,
of previous years, so they stopped going there.
yeah,
I think it's coming back, but it can really ruin a fishery, Norm,
yeah.
as you know.
And
Yeah.
in Florida, it's pretty much what it is. It's all politically driven. It's the politicians up north in the state of Tallahassee that's basically calling all the shots down here. So and unfortunately, the politicians that's calling the shots really have no clue what they're doing or how
Yeah,
to manage. You
Well,
know,
what we have here in Tennessee is we'll have the TVA or TWRA will go and spray the main lake channels, and which is all right. I mean, they're trying to make sure it stays clear for all the barges and stuff like that to come through. All right, we get that, but our main issue is where, like, you go in the back of a slough and it will you'll have like the people that's residents in the back of the slough. They're like, well, we want to be able to have our kids be able to swim in there or do whatever, and so they'll bring in like a private person to come in and drop chemicals in and kill all the grass, and that's where we have a lot of issues. Is uh, where it's the private owned people are getting people to come in. They're chipping in, the neighborhoods chipping in to get people to come and spray.
well, one of the problems we have in the state of Florida is they allot them so much millions of dollars a year in chemical. And the problem is, if they don't use it all in that fiscal year, they lose it. So what do? They go out and they just empty tanks. I've personally witnessed them just emptying tanks on anything. And a quick story, and I don't want to make this into all about the Florida Spring because that's not what that's not kind of what our topic line's supposed to be. But a quick story: one of my areas down here in Florida on Lake Estepoga, and we have a lot of viewers that watch our podcast also that fish Estepoga. It's probably listening to me right now. But when you launch at the ramp on the north end, which is Estepoga Parks, where Yumi is going to be launching out of tomorrow, one of my main areas is basically a retread area for bass. You can catch them there all year long because it's right on the outside of where tournament release fish are, and that's where they go. It's a big wide open pad field, and this pad field's in deep water. It's in about 5 to 6 foot. Well, since I got here, they must have went in and sprayed it because when I got here, it was nice green crisp pads. 2 days ago, my last day of practice on Estepoga, went in there, and the pads are starting to turn brown. I had a trip out today and went back in there with my trip. A quarter of the pads, and this is a huge pad field, a quarter of the pads is all wilting over. And 5 foot of water, no need to spray them pads or that area. There's no invasive weeds in there. It's just lily pad field. They're starting to wilt over. So I'm sure people watching is probably going to be going to Estepoga and witnessing that. But yeah, no need for it.
Right.
And
So-
it's just a sore subject.
Well, up north, we don't have as much issue, with the weeds as they do in some of the warmer states. There are issues on lakes where there's a lot of residential, homes around the lake, because then the homeowners, want the weeds away from their docks. They want to run their, different their jet skis, and they want to be able to water ski and not fall in a tangled mess.
Yeah.
So the boaters who are not fishermen against the fishermen, it can be an issue. But what's the bigger issue up north? There's a couple things. One, in the state of New York, the smallmouth season, the bass season, opens kind of late, and they're very strict on catch and release before the start of the season. Very strict. And so a lot of the anglers are bringing forth data on the smallmouth to show that, if they have a catch and release season, it won't affect the overall population. That's a big issue in the state of New York. Right. Along with that, in the Great Lakes waters, you have a lot of cormorants. I think you have cormorants down.
Yeah, we have some.
The cormorants up north, they're protected, and they're just gobbling up the small fish. And so some people want to take the protection off the cormorants because they're certainly not an endangered species.
Right.
So that's kind of on the freshwater side. Now Rob's back with us.
Yeah.
The real controversy up north is in the saltwater, and it's with the striped bass, the fluke, and the black bass. So why don't you talk about that controversy, Rob?
I'm having a really hard time with the signal. It's really dragging out. So I'm going to let you finish this up here, Eric, because I can't hear what they're saying.
Oh, okay.
And we'll come back another time and meet up with you again.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, every state had their own striped bass regulations in the salt and in the tributary rivers that are the spawning grounds, whether it be the Chesapeake, Susquehanna, Delaware, Hudson, James River, all those river systems that come in off the salt, basically from North Carolina all the way up to New England. And finally, there's been uniformity now amongst the states, but it's really been restrictive. A lot of fishing techniques that have been very common amongst anglers for years and years have been outlawed. We used to be able to catch live herring and live line the herring as live bait for stripers. Can't do that anymore. We used to be able to use treble hooks. Can't do that anymore. It's a circle hook only fishery now, and
Wow.
they're out aggressively checking for circle hooks. So it's been a real struggle between the anglers and the government. The anglers want to preserve the fishery as much as the government does, and yet there just seems to be a lot of friction on how to get that done, and to have not have different regulations on the Jersey Shore versus Long Island Shore versus the Cape Cod and the Cape Cod Canal versus in the Chesapeake. When everybody had something different, it was hard to keep track of. So there's just been a lot of unhappiness, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better.
Right.
And they've
Yeah.
they've restricted the limits now. Um, so they've done the similar thing with fluke or flounder, depending on what part of the country you're in, or what name you like to use. In terms of moving the season around, restricting the size, increasing the size for keepers. So it never seems to stay stagnant for more than 1 year. You get
Yeah.
Right.
new regs every year, and it's been very, very frustrating for the saltwater anglers. And there's a huge offshore angling population and a lot of surf casters, as well
Yeah.
as bank fishermen who fish in the Delaware River, in the Susquehanna along the flats where the fish spawn. So.
Yeah. We have a question, and you might be able to hit it, Eric. Mark is asking. He's saying that he's wanting to catch some stripers. What is some baits that he's needing to use?
So I think with if you're going to use live bait, then you want to use cut clams or stink bait like chicken livers. Let them get ripe. The stinkier the better, just like catfish. They're good for lures. Big rapalas, countdowns, um, anything that imitates like a fat shad. These fat shad, like the bull shad glide baits, are good
Big
for.
spoons.
So yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different baits, but
Big spoons.
big
Yeah.
spoons
Yeah.
can be used. Not the spoons are used more in the surf than and
Yeah.
poppers are used in the surf. Big poppers.
Yeah.
Um,
Because
but
here, and I don't know where you're at, Mark, but here in Tennessee, like we'll catch them on an A rig, um, with throwing like a 4 inch swim bait on them. Having, I mean, to where it's you really can't throw it too terribly much because it's going to wear you out. But we also will do like them big old spoons. We'll also um, do like the little Foley spoon, kind of set it up as a Carolina rig, but just have the Foley spoon just back behind it. And usually I'll use like a chartreuse when I'm doing that with the Foley spoon. Um, but you'll catch, just hold on. And because once they hit that sucker, it is like a Mack truck just running over that sucker.
yeah, I mean, if they're feeding in ball bait like bluebacks or gizzard shad, then even throwing one of the bigger size lipless cranks and just
Yeah,
ripping it through those bait pods
Yeah.
will do real well.
yeah. So, but Eric, can you talk a little bit about the iBass website and the magazine,
Sure,
um, to
sure.
where
Well, iBass360, we have an active Facebook page and Instagram, usually a couple posts a day, and we try to cover the tournament scenes, what's happening, day to day. When the elites or the Bass Pro Tour. Now I'm trying to cover the new National Professional Bass League as a third, because a lot of the bigger names are now fishing it. There's a lot of money available. They're given an opportunity for a wider range of anglers. Sometimes I'll dip down, cover the opens, especially when it starts getting down to the last few opens, and there's a tough competition for the 9 who are going to go forward into the elites.
Right.
So it's the web, it's the Facebook and the Instagram where you're going to get your news. What's happening now, what tournaments are happening, what's new in baits, rods, reels, reviews, things like that. Then when you go to the iBass360 webpage, you have our magazine, which comes out every other month. And the magazine usually features destinations. It could feature Chickamauga one month when things are coming into focus there, or early in the season could feature a couple Florida lakes, Harris Chain, maybe Butler Chain. But they're places where we have members who can talk about those bodies of water, so we can feature them to anglers who might be traveling in those areas.
Right.
Then, of course, every month we have an article by Bernie Hoyt on surf casting along the Atlantic coast. And we're also adding something called Tackle Tuesday once a month, which is in conjunction with the Long Island Beach Buggy Association. And that's also going to be a monthly saltwater article. And then we cover techniques in our blogs. So if you're on our blog and you want to know more about cold water fishing in the spring and the techniques to use, you can find articles there. And my son's a chef, so in conjunction with my son, a lot of times we'll post seasonal recipes for your catch. Like in the winter up north, I'm posting a lot on chowders and soups with fish. Maybe walleye that you're catching through the ice, or some of the saltwater species that are available for the fishermen in the wintertime. And then that's also where we feature our specialties. We feature women anglers, we feature our tournament angler team, and we feature our guides.
Yeah.
We have a guide network like this guy sitting right here, across the country, anywhere from Florida all the way, up to the Great Lakes, and from the east into the Midwest. And we'll feature waters like Lake St. Clair, Lake Erie, as well as some of the other lakes. But we have a guide network, and we'll feature the guides. And then we have guys like Ryan said. Ryan's a former Elite Series angler. He's also a smallmouth guide on Lake St. Clair. He'll review tackle for us, especially if Lew's or Strike King or Dobbins, some of his main sponsors, if they're coming out with new gear, he'll try it out. And he'll lay it right on the line and say, hey, this is good, this doesn't work, or you got to use it this way, not that way, or here's how to modify it. So, it's the web page is also rich, and the magazine is going to be a way of focusing all of our resources to the time of year when the magazine's published. So our first issue is out and available right
It is
now,
awesome.
and the next one will be out in May.
Now, if fishermen or women around the United States wants to get involved with iBass 360 or wants to follow iBass 360, what platforms or where could anglers go to follow iBass 360? And if they want to get involved as fishermen, as anglers, men and women, with iBass 360, what's the best route for them to take?
I think the best way is if like, let's say a tournament angler, if the tournament angler wants to increase the sponsorships that they get or increase their visibility so that they can attract more sponsors, they should contact Rob or myself through either our Instagram or Messenger on Facebook, because we're looking at that all the time and we'll answer. And then we can go to your Facebook or Instagram. We can see what you're all about, see how we might best promote you. I know I do fishing resumes for
You actually
guys
done
who have
mine.
no idea how to put a fishing resume together that they can circulate to a potential sponsor.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the best avenue, is using that social media to contact us.
Right.
and then we can set up a more elaborate phone call interview or meet you in person.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's how we've met most of the people. We also network at shows and through our anglers. Like Denise Sestata has a East Texas Lady Anglers bass tour, and we sponsor that bass tour. And she, reps iBass360. She'll go to some of the events like ICAST. Rob will be at ICAST. We go to, like Rob said, Philadelphia Fishing Show. And of course, we have Norman Collin will represent us at um, a lot of events that they do. So there are a lot of ways to kind of get a hold of us. But do check out the magazine, the blog articles on the website, and then just the regular posts that come out daily and weekly on
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram.
And on the website, it also has, guys, like a podcast section.
Oh yeah,
Even though,
I
like,
forgot to
I
mention
mean,
that.
we are presented by iBass360. There's, I think there's what, four other podcasts that has people that is represented by
Yeah,
iBass360 on there, and they are all phenomenal podcasts, and it kind of gives you different views um, of like their perspective and stuff on how to do things. They'll have guests come in, or sometimes they won't have guests, and they just kind of just talking fishing. But they you do want to go check them out.
yeah. I think we got, obviously, Deck Talk is our major you know, I'll say mouthpiece, because, for us, Norm and Colin have their act together. When they interview somebody, they're asking the questions that people want to know. People want to find out, whether it's Jimmy Houston or Roland Martin or Mike Iaconelli or, Chris Lane. They've had a lot of people on, Adrian Avina, all kinds of anglers, but there's a real focus on bass fishing primarily.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they feature a lot of interesting products, that might not be familiar to people, like the guy who does the buffs, the guy who does the lighting. I mean, that's
Oh yeah.
pretty innovative lighting for your boat and for fishing at night, and something that bass fishermen should definitely check out. But then we have Angie Scott. Captain Angie works for the Freedom Boat Club, and she takes people out who want to rent a boat from the Freedom Boat Club. But she's also a professional bass fisherwoman on the um, Lady Bass Anglers Tour.
A
But
hammer.
where Angie has really carved out a niche is she has a podcast called The Woman Angler and Adventurer that covers the whole spectrum of activities for women in the outdoors. Not only activities, but products. Because let's face it, women are tired of wearing men's medium, men's large, or men's small. They want something that works for them, whether
Yeah.
they're hunting or fishing or doing other activities in the outdoors. Women in sport in the outdoors is the fastest growing segment. In fishing, it's the fastest growing segment. In a lot of sports.
Yeah.
And Andy covers the water as well as the field,
Yeah.
for both hunting and fishing. And then there's for people down in Texas and Louisiana who are thinking a little different. They're thinking, bass in the bayou. They're thinking redfish. They're thinking speckled trout. We got Jay Angel, and Jay's got Let's Talk Fishing podcast,
Yeah.
Yep.
and he features a lot of the activities that are going on in what I'll call the deep south, uh, from the bayou to lakes like Toledo Bend, all the way over to things that are happening in East Texas. So
Yeah.
they're the three major podcasts that we've been involved with, but we're also involved with some professional anglers, as I said, with Gary Yamamoto has been a good friend of ours, and some of our anglers run his fishing operations at his ranches. Alyssa Johnson, Angela Brumley, um, to name two of the ladies that are real close to the Yamamotos and do a lot of work with them. So always something going on at iBass. And if we're
Yeah.
not doing it and you think you should, well, give Rob and I a call because we're all ears in terms of listening to new ideas and ways to support anglers in the community.
Yeah. And again, man, it is very like the information and stuff that you can get from the people from iBass. And if you haven't looked up iBass on Facebook, to be able to see the stuff that Eric does and he writes up, I mean, everything that is written up that Eric has put out is top notch. I mean, it is to the T what you want to know. He gives you the information, and it has a very detailed subject matter into it. It's just not just some kind of article going out just to post an article. There's a purpose for why he's posting what he's
A
posting.
purpose and a lot of thought goes into everything he writes.
So, but Eric, let's talk a little bit. We know Norman is down there doing some guiding, so
Which is why I'm here.
I was
I'm here
about to
to
say,
catch a personal best largemouth. That's what it's all about
I was
for
about
the
to
next
say, what
next
are
couple
you
of days.
doing down there? So let's talk a little bit about that. I hate that Rob had to get off because he's having internet issues.
I'm
Well,
not.
anybody who
No,
follows,
no offense, just kidding. But no, we're kind of sorry we had to lose Rob, but I've been having to hear some crap for the last 2 weeks, and
yeah. So Rob, we have a good friend of iBass, Matt Cook, and Matt is fishing the Butler chain, the Harris chain. I mean, he fishes that core water,
Yeah,
Kissimmee, all those lakes in and around or the greater Orlando area. And Rob's mom is down there. So Rob went down a couple weeks ago to ostensibly visit mom, but the real purpose was to catch a monster largemouth, and he succeeded.
yeah,
Rob caught a 10-4 on a chatterbait that just, he saw it come up and just inhale it. And of course, it was a mighty fight because it was in the shallows and had weeds all over it. And so he needed
yeah. He
every
probably pulled up about 12 pounds of grass with it.
easily. And
But
so now, I'm primarily a smallmouth fisherman. I fish a lot of smallmouth water in New York State, out in Michigan, because I've lived in both places. And even when I'm fishing with you guys on Nickajack, we're mostly catching smallies. At least
yeah,
that's been our good fortune
we
for the couple times we've been
we
out.
usually target smallmouth. There's all species of bass, but we normally target the smallmouth on Nickajack.
So
yeah,
Rob lives in New Jersey, and there's a New Jersey trophy bass lake right close to his house. It's electric only, so we either take my boat and just use the trolling motor. Or we have used Rob's boat with just the trolling motor. But I caught my biggest largemouth on that lake, but unfortunately, it's just about 5 pounds. So it's
well,
for a personal best on a largemouth. I mean, my personal best smallmouth
That's a
is a 6 pounder.
5 pounds.
So
5 pounds is a guppy in Florida.
my smallmouth personal best is bigger than my
yeah,
my largemouth. So we're out down here for two reasons. One is to catch something bigger than what Rob caught, and hopefully it'll be a personal best that'll stick for quite a while and be a real good memory. So I'm looking
yeah,
forward to getting out on Ixtapaga tomorrow with Norm and ripping some lip.
Yeah, we're
yeah,
gonna have fun. We'll have a blast, and all I'll tell you about catching the 10 pounder is anytime you wet a line on any South Florida lake, every cast you have a chance to bring back in a 10. So all I can tell you is I'm not sure, don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I'll do my best and work hard to try to get you it. And if it doesn't, we might still be able to definitely, hopefully, break your personal best that you have right now.
We should
yeah.
have some weather.
Well,
It's finally calmed down a bit down here because
Yeah.
they had some cold weather, they had some rainy weather.
Well,
And,
this past weekend on Sunday, we had a major cold front blow through. I mean, the barometer just plummeted and kind of affected. I had a two half day trips on Tuesday, and it was still kind of showing some of the effects of that cold front. We still caught numbers. It just kind of diminished the big bass bite. The bigger bass pushed off because of that pressure drop. So it's kind of starting to stabilize itself now. So the bite's starting to come back after that cold front we had. We had storms, rain Sunday, and it was just a mess out there. So things are starting to kind of settle down now after that front. We're about 4 days removed, so the bite's starting to pick back up. So we had to have fun. We had a good couple days anyway. We ought to catch numbers, and that's the one thing with fishing in South Florida is any cast could be that big.
I'm ready. I'm
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah, we got a comment from Chris. He's a buddy of mine. He says, "Colin, you holding out on Eric with not taking him to Chickamauga to get his PB on Chickamauga. I know you can catch ones bigger than 5 pounds on Chick."
Well, Chris, it's a long story, but
Yeah,
Colin, Norm, and I went to a secret lake where there are known to be some really big fish.
We'll just
yeah,
call it Lake X.
We caught that lake on a bad day,
it was.
and
It was.
but they have taken me to some water where you can really get on a big one.
Yeah, I mean,
Up in
because
that
that lake.
Tennessee Georgia Valley.
Well, and Chris, the what he's talking about is the lake that we went to. I went 2 days before with my dad, and I caught one 7.5. I lost one that was bigger than that, and so I called Norman and I called Eric and I said, "Hey, they're blowing up on some top water," and I said, "Let's get there to it." And so we were going to go fishing 2 days later. Well, I had to go to work and I had to go. We went to South Carolina. It did not rain in South Carolina. So I didn't think of nothing about it raining up here, which where this lake is, it has mountains feeding. And it went from where the lake was like a greenish, kind of clearish, greenish looking to where it was chocolate milk. And we fished it for like 4 hours and had one bite. Norman actually caught the only fish that we caught on that lake, and so we packed back up and went to Nickajack and
And
got on
just
some
just to,
smallies.
just to add a little salt on Eric's wound, that one fish we caught that day was probably right at his personal best.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it
If
probably
his
was.
lure went in front of that bass, he probably would have had a new personal best. It's probably about
Yeah.
5.5.
But I can tell you, we threw the tackle box at him.
Yeah,
We did.
I don't think there was anything we didn't try.
I think we trolling motored and fished all around that lake. We made one full circle around it and had one bite, which was the one fish we caught. And then we decided we made a business decision to pull the boat out and head over to Nickajack, and we went over there and we caught some fish once we got to Nickajack. So
I mean, this was, if I remember correctly, this was November, and one of the things that, so cold water fishing. That's what a lot of
Yeah.
people are doing these days, especially, let's say from Tennessee north. Blade bait. We
Yeah.
use blade baits, and Norman caught that one fish on a blade bait. Something like the silver buddy. A lot of people make different versions of a blade bait, but that has a right vibration, whether you fish it slow or just rip it and then let it sit. But for cold water, that's one of the best baits, and it doesn't matter, largemouth, smallmouth,
Mm-mm.
either of them will hit it.
Yeah.
And this time of year, as we start to transition, to where it's open water in most places, I would always have a blade bait in your tackle box.
yeah, we fish in blade baits in Tennessee all year long, but we will never hit the lake without at least one laying alongside of us on the deck of the boat, this time of the year, from like November all the way up through March,
Yeah,
April.
Yeah.
I
You
agree.
always have to have one tied on.
Well, the
I,
blade bait, I think, is that and the spinner bait. I think are one of the two most like underrated
Yeah.
baits right now. I mean, because people think that blade bait's just a typical wintertime bait. Um, like what Norman said, we fish it all year round. I started fishing it all year round after I seen a video of Mike Iaconelli saying if you're not fishing this during the summertime, you're missing
Yeah.
out. And I went out after I seen that video. Went out and I caught one 6.5 on Nickajack, and I was like, man, they do hit this thing in the summertime. And ever since then, I've always tried to keep one in the boat,
Yeah.
ready to be thrown. Uh, it definitely is a. I mean, you can retrieve it like you do a lipless rattle trap or lipless crankbait, and uh, do use it like if you're going throw it through some grass, rip it
Oh,
out of grass, and that is
yeah.
one thing that I don't do enough because by the end of the day you are sore.
Yeah. And you're
So
talking about spinnerbait being underrated, Colin. You just don't hear. I mean, I could remember 20 years ago. If you went to any weigh-in, no matter what level the tournament was, whether it was a weekend warrior tournament, a dogfight tournament, or one of the professional events, almost every boat you walk down the bank and look on their deck, they're going to at least have one spinnerbait laying on their
yeah.
deck, and
yeah.
you just don't see that anymore. For some, and I don't know what it is. Spinnerbaits still catch fish just like they did 20 years ago, but you never hear about people using them anymore. It's kind of one of the biggest underrated baits today because just nobody uses them anymore.
Well,
Uh,
when we had Jimmy Houston on here at the beginning of the year and was talking about
oh
that,
yeah,
he said that what it is like when there's just so much baits that's out there and people just overlook.
yeah,
And the only people that I really see that still keeps throwing a spinnerbait right now is the guys that fish night tournaments or fish
yeah,
during the night,
Mm.
and which that's one of the best nighttime baits out there. Is it just throw a black I'll throw like a 1 ounce black with red eyes spinner bait. I'll change it out from a chrome blade to a black blade. But that's to me is one of the best nighttime baits that you can
Now, for
throw.
nighttime fishing, the spinnerbait, Colin, do you use bigger blades on it to get that
Yeah.
bigger front, bigger vibration so the
It,
fish can sense
Yeah,
it
you go
easier?
with the big Colorado.
Yeah,
yeah, I like using the Colorado. That's about not quite the size of like a $half because
right.
I want it to give that thump. But I
Yeah,
tell you this, the next thing um, is having that firefly on there to where I mean it's like it's fishing up under a new or under a full moon, so it's giving that glare, so they're able to see the silhouette of that. They're hearing that big old thump from that
exactly.
blade, but that the firefly is I mean
Yeah,
it clearly looks like you're fishing underneath a
yeah,
full moon, and so it's giving that
yeah,
perspective that they can see somewhat of the
yeah,
silhouette, and that has been
yeah,
ever since I've gotten that firefly. My night, I don't really fish nighttime as much as I used to, but my the fish catches that I have been able to get more bites and bigger, uh,
yeah,
better quality fish using that because they're
yeah.
seeing one, they're
And
seeing
Spin,
and
what? Yeah, what Colin's talking about before we get too far removed from talking about what Colin's talking about is Firefly, Firefly outdoor and marine. And if you're not familiar with Firefly, Firefly makes the hands down best navigation lights on the market. And there's a lot of different reasons why. But guys, and we're going to throw a little plug in for Firefly too. Go to their website, check them out, and make sure use our discount code because they are one of the partners for our podcast as well. When you do go on Firefly Marine's website, go on and make sure you use our discount code DeckTalk10 to get your instant savings on anything off of their website as well. And they have a few other things on there as besides the navigation lights as well, such as a shore stacker if you're a bank fisherman as well. But yeah, as far as that's what Colin's talking about is when you have them on your boat, guys, it gives you the exact perception as if you are fishing under a full moon because of the way their a globe is designed, and basically the way it 100% glare reduction does not attract the bugs because what attracts bugs is glare. So you have absolutely no glare on these lights, but it almost looks like you are fishing under a full moon.
Yep.
With regard to the spinner baits, up north, perch, huge forage base.
Yeah.
And, so using that perch color or, the fire tiger on a spinner
Yeah.
bait and, with a pumpkin trailer or a little bit of neon on the very tip of the, excuse me, the tail of the trailer, it's killer. It's
Yeah.
killer.
Well,
New York Shield Lakes, all the way out to Minnesota, Wisconsin. That perch color won't do you wrong.
Are you talking about
yeah.
fire tiger or fire tiger?
Yeah, it's
The
with
color, yeah.
the chartreuse,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
bright green, and the
I was
orange.
gonna say you're kind of that's another color that's kind of nowadays old school. You don't hear about it talked to. I mean, I could remember back in the day throwing fire tiger lipless crankbaits and just jacking them.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
don't hear about the fire tiger color much anymore. Kind of old school, but that color still works as well.
Yeah, going
Yeah.
back.
I got a
Original
bunch of them in the lipless.
lipless, fire tiger,
Yeah.
killer.
Yeah. And guys, right now, where I'm at, I mean, because Norman and Eric's down in Central Florida right now, or Southern Florida. But
Sweating butt off.
you'd be all right. I'd rather be sweating than freezing. I mean, I had to unload cakes in 30-degree weather here last night. So
Thank goodness for the bruiser bait buffs to wherever my head. My head's red. The first 2 days, I
hey,
didn't put my buff on. You can see, I don't know if you can see it on camera. My nose is blistering up. I started wearing the buff, which I should have had on the first 2 days. I'm stupid in that way.
where's this? Where's yours?
It's back at the house. He's actually the one I have is actually a little bit large. He's actually in the process of sending me a small one that actually fits my head. I have a head that hasn't fully developed yet. It's when we originally got the Rift mask, I got a medium, and even medium's way too big for my
Yeah.
head. So he's actually in the process of sending me a small. I wish I had it already down here because I'd be definitely utilizing the Rift mask, but I don't have it yet, so I'm having to wear my bruiser bait ones. But yeah, the first 2 days I didn't have it on, and boy, I burnt my butt off.
Yeah.
So luckily I have that. I don't get too much sun on my face.
But what I was saying though was the right now, like the fire crawl, using a chatterbait that is a fire crawl, with the same fire crawl, Kitech or whatever, some kind of swim bait. Also been using like the spunk shad has got it in the fire crawl. That spunk shad, I don't know if y'all have ever used a spunk shad or not, but that spunk shad has been one of the best versatile baits that you can throw it on anything. And I've really enjoyed throwing it. And the original ones by Hog Farmers, that is by far probably the best ones that I have used. But here, within, I think last year, I want to say Missile Baits got teamed up with Hog Farmers and done their version of. I mean, it's from the same mold and everything. Actually, oh shoot, I just drew a brain fart of who the guy's name, but the owner of
John Cruz.
no, the owner of Hog Farmers.
Oh, okay.
Actually, Hog Farmers is actually Eric is actually from Soddy Daisy, Tennessee, which is just right down the road from us. and they make it all there in house. But him and John Cruz got together. John Cruz had him make the spunk shad in the missile baits, but they did not offer any kind of colors that hog farmers offered, so it's all new colors. Uh, but I did see like where Z Man's got their version of the spunk shad. Let's see, who else was it? There was one more. Berkeley had. I've seen where Berkeley has one, and the X Zone Baits has got one as well. But I've thrown all of them except for that X Zone one. But that Hog Farmer one is by far my favorite one to throw on a chatterbait. And also got a video that's coming out because I found out something by mistake, and which is one of those blessings in disguise. What I do with the chatterbait, I like when I throw a Texas rig and stuff. I like to peg my weight down on it to where, especially like if I'm pitching through like some brush or whatever, so it just goes straight down in it.
Yeah.
And so I cut off my Texas rig, just slid the bobber stopper up and retied and slid it back down because I'm like, all right, I'm going to be tying on a Texas rig again here. I didn't want to waste it. So, but I realized, guys, that putting that bobber stopper down onto the knot of with the chatterbait, that it is actually starting that blade to vibrate a whole lot quicker uh, than what you normally would do. Because sometimes it will take like a crank and a half to do it, and with putting that bobber stop on it, it's about a half a crank, and you can already start feeling it. So if you do that, and my thinking on it is because I always want to try to find a way how to be able to get it to start quicker. Because if it's going a crank and a half, two cranks up to four cranks to be it before some of them to get going, then you're missing fish. That bait's coming by because it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Uh, but if you put that bobber stopper down on that chatterbait, I don't know if it's a weight thing. Eric, you might know. But if it like how just a little bit of weight or whatever is making it start to vibrate a whole lot quicker.
I might just add a little bit of tension to the line that allows you to get
Yeah.
faster action.
Yeah, that may be it, but I don't know. That's just something I found out actually here recently, and I've got a video that I'm going to do that I just got to finish editing it out, and I have it put out for us. So, but that's a tip that I found by mistake. So, but other than that, Eric, how long are you going to be down in Florida?
Well, Norman and I are fishing on Friday and Saturday, and then we're going over on Sunday to fish with our good friend Dennis Crenshaw, who's a crappie guide.
Yeah.
And so we'll be maybe catching a little bit for the table.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to being with Dennis on
Dennis
Sunday.
is a great guy.
And then I gotta get back up to Alabama on Monday. So
you're gonna be driving all night, pretty much. What I hear then.
well, yeah. This morning I started out like 2:30 Central Time, and it took between 10 11 hours to get down here. Atlanta's always the worst.
Yeah.
No matter
it's
what
hard.
time of day, Atlanta just sucks. Sorry.
Yeah.
And the Braves suck because I'm a Phillies fan, so it makes it even worse to go through Atlanta.
Yeah. You go through Atlanta and all you hear is oh.
It's bad enough driving through Atlanta without a boat, but every time I go through there, I usually have the boat in tow, and it's a pain, especially when you have to change lanes. Nobody gives you any slack on the roads in Atlanta trying to have to maneuver
I
lane to lane.
Norman, I don't want to hear nothing until you're driving something that's weighs 80,000 pounds, and
Full of little Debbie's.
yeah, and when
What
you
what
got
a
to go
one.
through
You just
there.
pull over the rest area and have a snack.
But guys, we have been on here an hour and 5 minutes, and but we want to thank y'all. We had right at 1,100 people on here tonight, and it is thank you. I mean, we can't say thank you enough for getting on here, taking the time to spend an hour and 5 minutes with us, and with our guests, and to be able, hopefully you've been able to learn something, especially today. And if you're interested in the iBass, again, just reach out. You can actually reach out to Rob, Eric, Norman, and myself. And if you reach out to Norman and myself, we'll make sure that we get you contacted with Rob and Eric. And excuse me, make sure you go check out the website. And it
And the
is, again,
magazine.
Yeah,
it
and the
is.
magazine.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's what I was about to get to. The magazine is there on the website. It is a phenomenal. The one that that is up right now. It is killer. Great information. It is well done, Eric.
And it's the
Y'all,
right price.
yeah, it is the right price, and it's it's that one that starts with an F. It ends with an E.
Yep.
So, but it gives
That's
you,
always good.
yeah, it's you get all the information that you ever would want from, and they split it up so well to where you get that Florida bite that you want to try to get. If you're down in Florida, you're going to get the Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and they go up to Pennsylvania, New York, Michigan, uh, what is it?
Texas.
And Texas, correct. I mean, it's you from pretty much from the Midwest East. It's pretty much covered. They got people that is giving them information and stuff and writing articles. Um, we're on the phone with Eric and Rob a couple times a week, giving them information and stuff that we have, and so you're getting tips from people that is actually out there on the water catching fish at the time, and it's not like how you'll see some people do a video to where, all right, this is we're gonna go to Florida and catch some spawning fish, but it's not posted until 2 months after spawn's done. But if you wait 2 more months, you'll be able to start catching spawn down in Florida. But you it is very well timed out to where it's going to benefit you to be able to go read the magazine, uh, see some of the sponsors, and if you're looking to be able to help, you're needing help to be able to get sponsors, again, reach out to them. They do wonders about helping you get sponsors, and doing it right. You want to be able to get the right sponsors that's going to fit what you're doing, and they take the time to be able to see what you're wanting, what you're doing, and to be able to fit a sponsor that's going to fit in with uh, what the, because you just don't want to go out and just get some podunk or whatever sponsor that does not fit with what you're doing. If you're not using the bait using the product, it's not really going to do you any good to have them as a sponsor to be able to push, because your clientele that you're getting to view what you're doing is not going to uh it's
Yeah,
not.
I probably should mention, Colin, that our Facebook page and our Instagram, we have visibility. Most of our average 28-day exposure is between 250 and 300,000 people,
Yeah,
300,000 views, and that's all organic. We
yeah,
don't pay Facebook or Instagram a dime. It's all organic from
and that's
sharing information, and then people who see good information share it with their friends and share it with their friends. And
Yeah.
that's really what it's all about. I mean, just like in business, where they say networking is everything, in fishing, networking is everything. It's how you learn. You learn from
No,
these podcasts. You learn from getting on the water with friends. You learn from sharing, with guides and other anglers through these podcasts. So what Rob and I appreciate most about Colin and Norm is they're everyday guys, but they're well prepared. They do their homework on their guests, whether it's a Jimmy Houston or the owner of Bruiser Baits.
yeah.
They do their homework, and you're going to hear something that is going to put an idea in your head that you're going to take on the water next time you go and help you catch fish.
Yeah,
So
and that's the main thing with us, Eric. And I appreciate you saying that because that
Yes.
means a lot to us. Because this doing the podcast, we really didn't realize how much work it was really going to take, but we wanted to be able to be that step above any other podcast, and January proved it. I have not looked at the number. I've just been so busy with my mom having a stroke, and then with work, and then having to go get my lower unit replaced, and this and that. Just a bunch of just the daily living life stuff that happens that I have not been able to check to see what the numbers are. But last month was the biggest month by far for Deck Talk Podcast, where we had almost 5 million views for Deck Talk Podcast through all of our platforms. So um, we have been blessed. And
Let me correct that if Mike Collin. That was five. We had 5 million watches on one episode. Out of the episodes we had, our average views over all of them was 800 and some thousand was our average amongst the 40 episodes we have. We had one episode that actually hit the 5 million watch mark.
yeah,
And the nice thing, I mean, you can come on live and you can ask questions and you can hear, a Jimmy Houston share something that he's never shared before. I mean, it was a fascinating interview.
yeah,
But you can also watch it later. Nothing's on
yeah.
TV, or you're sitting eating dinner, or you're on the road. And wherever you are, you can say, "Hey, I
We
missed that episode where they talked about this, or they talked about that, or the smallmouth guy was on a couple weeks ago and I missed it. I'm going to go catch up with that."
yeah.
You know, do it because you're going to learn something.
Yeah, and that's what we when I had thought about the podcast, and I was kind of iffy about it, and I said something to Norman, and I was like, Norman, let's just do it. We talked about it for about what 2.5 3 months, Norman,
Yeah.
and I was like,
We
let's
talked
just
about
do
it
it.
for a while.
And that's what we wanted to do, to be able to get people in and be able to give out information. And again, like that Jimmy Houston, he gives a secret to how he throws that spinner bait, what he does to be able to get more bites on the spinner bait. So if you're wanting to learn how to throw one of the most underrated baits that's out there right now and be able to catch big fish, and you need to listen to and watch. I mean, again, we have it on every kind of platform that there is, to be able to where you can watch it or you can hear it. It does not matter. We've got it taken care of. You can do it. So, but let's say it's going on an hour and 15 minutes. So, hey, Norman, let's do this real quick.
Yeah.
Tell everybody what we got or who we have coming on next week, and because it is a another hammer.
Yeah, next week we actually have BMAC, Brandon McMillan, good buddy of mine. He is actually fishing the EQs in the Bassmaster Opens this year, trying to qualify for the elites. He is a former FLW Tour competitor. But it's going to be a great episode. You don't want to miss it. That's going to be this coming Thursday's episode.
And he's a heck of a jig fisherman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Brandon is. I mean, I've known Brandon for years. I've competed against him for years, and I will tell you, hands down, my opinion, he is the best flipper with the flipping stick in his hand that I know.
I,
Um,
but but we cannot talk about him and not say he's probably got the best fish catch that has ever
Yeah.
been caught on camera.
Yeah, and if you wanna find out what Colin's talking about, you got to watch the episode next week. But guys, I promise you, it is the most insane fish catch you're ever gonna witness, and it was all caught on camera. And it was in January at an FLW tour event on day 2, or actually day 3. So you got to watch the episode, if nothing else, just to watch that fish catch. But guys, yeah, it's going to be a great episode.
Better than Bill Dance falling out of a boat.
But
Well,
hey, real quick, Colin, before we end this thing, and Rob was having some connection problems, so we kind of lost Rob about a quarter of the way through the podcast. But we might as well go ahead and do our final question for Eric here. That's kind of became a mainstay. Kind of the way we end our show. But Eric, if you were to have one person to fish with for the day, that this person could be passed away, or he or she could be still with us, who would that person be? Who would you want to fish with the day with, and why?
Well, so I mean, I love fishing with my sons. I got 3 sons, and I love fishing with my granddaughters. I got 2 granddaughters, in this past summer, they caught their first fish, a bunch of perch, a bunch of bluegill, but the 6-year-old also caught a largemouth, which made the 9-year-old super jealous. But despite all the joy that that's given me, both, teaching those boys to fish when they were kids and now watching them teach their kids and fishing with them as adults, I would love to fish with my dad again. I lost my dad when I was a freshman in college, and, all these gray hairs, that was quite a long time ago.
I'm catching up to you.
He taught me how to fish on a creek in Levittown, Pennsylvania, and bank fishing for bluegills and sunnies, and he gave me the passion that I have today for the sport, and never got to fish with him as an adult, obviously, and just to spend a day on the water, kick back, that would be priceless.
Yeah,
So
that would be.
Awesome.
We do have Neil Stark said he didn't want to hear anything from Norman unless he has gas in his truck and boat. So,
That's fine. I promise you, Neil, when we actually get back together this coming July, I will make sure we get down there with a full tank of gas in the truck and a full tank in the boat.
and
yeah,
one of these days, Captain Stark, I'm going to come down and catch some of those peacock bass with you.
yeah,
I'd love to do that.
that is for sure. That is, I mean, that's should be a bucket list trip. To be able to go down there and catch a peacock. I know it was for me, and then we actually were able to get out on the boat with him last July and had a field day. Caught over 100 peacocks.
Colin was able to check off 2 bucket lists off of his bucket list checklist. One, catch some big old peacocks, and the second one is get to see a gator up close and personal.
No, we done that 2 years ago.
Well,
They can get a little too personal.
2 years ago, it wasn't up close and personal. We actually we actually have some pretty good footage. We actually filming that day. We actually have some pretty good footage of that gator almost coming up in the boat, trying to see what Colin was actually throwing.
Yeah, and I thought you was going to go to feeding the alligators.
Well, you did that too. You got him. You seen him up close and personal. Almost got attacked by one, but he actually done pretty good.
Yeah,
He didn't kind of too bad.
Neil said would love that. Reach out, and he said I'll make it happen. So there you go, Eric.
All right.
There you go.
So, but other than that, guys, let's see.
Appreciate being on. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm trying. I had something else that I was wanting to, but I'm just tired and I can't remember.
Yeah.
But
Make it quick. I should have brought my padded chair down from my office, from my studio in
Yeah, these
Tennessee.
chairs are getting a little hard.
Yeah.
These wooden chairs in my I don't have that much. I don't have near as much padding on my behind as you, and it's starting to actually wear raw.
Yeah, it's starting
Yeah.
to feel like I was back in elementary school in the '60s, sitting in wood chairs.
Right.
I got a bony butt, and I got a bone hitting the chair right now, and it's hurting.
Yeah, but guys, we thank you for coming and watching us talking about some fishing. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully we didn't go down too terribly many rabbit holes, because I know we tend to do that from time to time. But
rabbit holes are good, right?
Yeah, and but guys, we will see you next week again with Brandon McMillan. It is going to be an awesome show.
Yes.
Get to see one of the greatest bass fishing catches on TV to ever be recorded.
Yeah.
All I'll say on that is a croc was lost. So, but other than that, guys, we hope that you live the passion. Hope to see you next week. But if not, we want to see you out on the water and live the passion.
Live the passion,
Live
tight
the
lines,
passion.
and see you on the water.